greet everybody. I'm very honored and really grateful to be invited here. I've never been to Bursa or to Inigo, and it's quite an eye-opening experience. I don't like to bend over like this, so I need a microphone, a handheld microphone. Unless I can walk around like this. Okay, hello? Can you hear me? Okay? Okay. So, I want to talk about design. As you know, I think it's important to maybe to define design collectively for a moment. Every physical object and thing that we come in contact with on a daily basis is design. So design is not something that's removed or for the elite or for a specific culture. Design is part of our entire built environment. And design, even more so now, is our entire virtual environment too. Which means the chair you sit on, the carpet you touch, the flatware you use, the plate you use, the phone in your pocket, all of it is design. For good and for bad. So really design is the shaping of our human daily experiences. Now, on average, we touch 640 objects a day. Every one of us. Can you imagine this? From the minute you wake up, the bed that you're on, to the side table that you touch, to the phone that you pick up, to your eyeglasses that you put on, to the flooring that you touch when you get out, to the door handle, to the door opening, you are ongoing physically interacting with commodity, with physical products every day. So design, you could argue, or our physical built environment, has a huge impact on our well-being and on our social behaviors. In other words, design defines our human experience. And in some cultures, for example, they sleep on the floor. In other cultures, you sleep 60 centimeters off the ground. So, culturally, we are still shaping social human behaviors. The reason I'm saying this is because in Inigo, there's 1,300 furniture manufacturers. And design has a tendency to be looked at as something that's about style. But what is style? Let me define for everybody and kind of clarify the difference between design and style. When we categorize history, we categorize it as finished movements or styles. For example, the Belle Epoque style, Renaissance style, Baroque style, Brutalism style, Fauvism style, the Surrealist style, and you could go on and on and on and on. In other words, the way we understand history and the way we know about our human history of the last 100,000 years is categorized as style. Now, it's fascinating how, for example, if I'm in the Cairo Museum and I see a chair from 4,200 years ago, a folding chair, simple, very simple folding archetype, that chair defined, symbolized the civility of the time in which the ancient Egyptians lived. In other words, we understand how the ancient Egyptians lived, or how the Ottomans lived, or how the Ming Dynasty was through our physical commodity, through objects. So every one of those physical things, be it an urn that we pull up from the ground, be it a folding chair, be it a casket, a coffin for burial, those objects taught us about human history. So today, 2015, if we design an object, does it speak about 2015? A very simple scenario. If It's the year 3500. Somebody comes to our planet, goes into the ground, excavates, and finds an object or a product. And that product is from 2015. Does it speak about, does it communicate, does it become a signifier of the year 2015? And then we'll say, oh, in 2015, quite interesting, there was this object called an iPhone 6. And if you can turn it on and they can operate it, they even see how the interface worked and said, oh, this is how people used to interface the mobile phone in 2015. So design is actually marking, denoting our history. In other words, when we design something today, we are making history. But we're only making history if that object or thing we define today is relevant to the time in which we live. Does that make sense? So, for example, you over there, be quiet. For example, a Baroque couch. If I make a copy of a copy of a copy of a copy of a Baroque-like couch, is that couch, that sofa, speaking about the 21st century and the time in which I live? Is it? It's not. Because what I've done is I've borrowed from history to shape the present. But if I design a couch today, this speaks about social behavior of today. Let me give a simple scenario. How is a couch used today? In the 1700s, a couch, many couches had a configuration that was concentric, so that when people sat, they communicated with each other. And eventually, the sofa became straight, and in front of it was another sofa, or another couch, and we communicated this way. Eventually, there was no sofa in front, there was a television. And we all sat in one direction, looking at a television. And now you say, how do we live today? What's simple human behavior of today? At home, when I'm at home and I go to the couch, and I have my iPad because I'm going to sketch on it, or I have a laptop, my wife sits on the couch, she leans one way and puts her laptop on her lap. And next thing you know, I realize that the way we're shaping the sofa we're sitting in is that we're facing each other and we need something to lean on. So the object starts to change its physical language. Its semantics are changed, and its semantics are relevant to the time in which we live. Now, if you look at the world, there's probably 1 million chairs designed, or 1 million sofas designed. The question today is, do any of those pieces of furniture really address the social behaviors of the time in which we live? Very few. Very, very, very few. In the last 7-8 years, I've worked with 20, 30 Italian furniture companies. In my history of my career, I've worked with 150. I proposed couches that were made to work on, to have a laptop on, or to have an iPad, or to have your mobile phone. It is amazing how every company rejected the idea. Why did they reject the idea? They rejected the idea because we live in history. We don't live in the present. And this is the whole problem with humankind in general, is that we tend to believe too much in the past. And not only do we believe too much in the past, but we live by the values, the rules, the kind of social etiquette of the past. But what is the present? What the present is? The age in which we live? The digital age. I design physicality, but the reality is, this is what's happening to the world. 100,000 years of analog physical world. 40 years of the digital age. Just 40 years. In fact, for most of us, it's 10 years. In the digital age, which by the way, on average, we're spending 6.5 hours a day on looking at a screen, which is amazing. Think about that. So we're spending more of our time in a kind of virtual diorama than we are in our physical world. So why are we spending so much time in the digital age? Because the digital age is affording us phenomenal connectivity. It's affording us to be more productive. It's affording us to be more creative. It's affording so many more heightened human experiences than we ever thought possible. And remember, this is only just the beginning of the digital age. I use a term, pioneers, which are really the pioneers of binary notation, of the digital age. That's who we are, meaning we have no idea yet how all this is going to unfold. We do know we have a smartphone in our pocket. We do know we can walk around with a 120 gigabyte little flash drive. We do know we can have 5,000 friends on Facebook. We do know all these things, but this is only the beginning. And why is it relevant? It's relevant because what is going on with the physical analog world if the digital age is so pleasurable, so seductive, so experiential? And this is something I ask myself constantly. If I make something physical, put something physical into the world, does it have contribution? Does it have value? Does it have meaning to the world now in which we live? Now, interestingly enough, the analog age started to deplete the world of all our resources. The analog age, we took right from the earth everything. We're taking everything possible. Marble and oil and precious stones and iron ore and nickel and onward, right? That's the analog age. In order to build the physical world we built, we just kept taking. The digital age, there's nothing to take. The digital age uses 1/10,000th of the energy the analog age needs. So, I have a little bit of a theory. Not to get too philosophical, but my theory is, the reason the digital age came about is to save the planet. So, design now. What is design? Well, if design is not about going into history and copying or making derivatives or appropriation of history, then what is design? And how do you design? And how do you do new work? And how do you do work that's relevant for the changing world? Because the reality is, youth culture sees the world completely different to my generation, and the generation before me, and the generation before me, because I'm from the analog age. I learned to design with a triangle and a T-square. I learned to design in 2D, in 2 dimensions. I learned to just look at design as a plan, elevation, section, top, bottom view. That's how I was taught to design. But what happened to the digital age? Excuse me, I just need some water. In the digital age, we don't design in top, bottom, side, front, section. We design in 3D. And for 9 years, in fact, I have to tell you a very quick story. When I lived in Toronto and worked in Toronto, I was in my late 20s, 1988. And I'm going to the design office, and some young guys there said to me, "Hey, you're an industrial designer." I said, "Yes." They said, "Well, we're developing a 3D software called Alias." Just 2 young guys. I went in, they had an SGI, and I spent 4 months basically designing mailboxes for Canada Post. And after 4 months, I managed to have a cube rotate on a screen. That's how fundamental 3D was. But I started thinking about designing in 3D then. Now we're talking 25 years ago. So I've been designing more or less in 3D at least for the last 20 years. And when I design in 3D, I'm not thinking in 2D. So I'm not looking at things in elevation. If I design them in 3D, I'm actually thinking them far more as a human extension of the human body, as an extension of us, because we are 3-dimensional. Now, the whole world that we live in right now was designed in 2D. Think about this. Why is the entire world Cartesian? Why is everything a complete grid? Because we designed in 2D since the Renaissance, when we understood perspective, and we basically started to design everything in elevation and section and plan. So we built a world, look at this world, we built a world that's entirely made of straight lines, Cartesian lines. But interesting, a straight line does not exist in nature. And so really, we've been fighting nature. This whole time, we have created how can I say, we've been an antagonist to nature. And with the Industrial Revolution, because the first thing we did in the Industrial Revolution, by the way, was make a machine cut a straight line. Then we had a machine plane a piece of wood. Then we had a machine bore holes in 2D. Then we had a machine rotate and turn a steel tube in 2D. So we basically, with the Industrial Revolution, the simplicity of technology afforded us to only create two-dimensional objects, two-dimensional worlds. Now, if you look at the history of humanity, you will see that thousands of years ago, when we shaped domestic environment in homes, we carved them out and we made them three-dimensional. We didn't make them straight walls. Think about this, that a cave. Just today, this last few months, there was a 5,000-year-old town discovered near Ankara, I think, right? When you look at the kind of architecture that was built, it's entirely amorphous, organic shaped. When a caveman dug the first cave 100,000 years ago, and he used his hand, when you dig, you don't dig a straight line. You dig this. And basically you shape a womb, the thing we're born in. So the reality is that the connection with humans and human nature is organic. It's not Cartesian. Now, as an industrial designer, you can imagine this. I'm asked to design a credit card for Citibank. And it's a 2D card. And I wanted to change the shape of the card. But Citibank said, we can't change the shape of the card because it has to fit into an automated money machine. And they're all 2D. And there's 1.6 million machines in the world. So all I could do was graphics. Then I'm designing a refrigerator for LG or a stove for Grenier. And what am I told? It has to be a rectangle, and it has to be 60 centimeters, and it has to be 85 centimeters long. Why? Because it has to fit into a kitchen. And then I'm designing kitchens for Scavolini and Iran kitchens and many others. And what does the kitchen have to be? A grid in order to fit into the condominium. So it's a grid within a grid within a grid within a grid within a grid. I'm designing a mobile phone right now, and I did everything in my power not to keep a rectangle. But I can't, because all the liquid crystal displays that we've created in the world are grids of pixels. You can make a liquid crystal display that's circular. The problem is that all the software that's designed is designed for a rectangle, a grid. So we're kind of trapped. But we're not trapped when it comes to certain typologies and certain objects. We're not trapped when it comes to making a chair that's going to fit the human body. We're not trapped when we're going to make a lounge that I would lie on. We have opportunity in the low-tech world to shape a more amorphous world. So, in this 100,000 years of analog, when we stole all the oil from the earth, and we basically destroyed the earth, we've cut down hundreds of forests, and onward and onward, the digital age comes about. And the digital age comes about for us to reconsider and rethink what we're doing physically and how we're doing it. So, in the physical world, I just designed an injection molded plastic chair that's made from acai fruit in Brazil. I just designed an injection molded chair that's made from sugar cane polyethylene, a PLA derived from sugar, not from oil. This is the new materials, and this is the new technologies that if we embrace them, we don't need to deplete the earth of important resources. And this is something the digital age afforded us. We couldn't invent the LED bulb without the digital age. And the LED/OLED takes 1/10,000th of the energy of an incandescent bulb. So again, the digital age is saving the earth. So, simple now. I'm going to design a bed, or a chair, or a dining table. What's going to inform me to design something, A, that changing tastes and cultures want, B, that's relevant to the world in which I live, C, that is responsible, meaning is it sustainable, etc.? Is it lightweight? When I'm in San Francisco, and I'm in a hotel room, and I see a coffee table sitting in front of me in a room, and the coffee table is 1.5 meters by 1.5 meters of a slab of Carrara marble taken from a quarry in Carrara, Italy. Taken out of the ground, honed, cut, polished, sent to some other manufacturer to put some legs on it in Italy, shipped all over the world to San Francisco, up 10 floors, stuck in a room. You have to question why. Is that table there for the sake of design, or is that table there for the sake of style? And design means I'm supposed to shape a better world. And the original definition of design was a social betterment of society. Making a better world, an easier world, a more comfortable world, a more inspiring world, a more experiential world, a more beautiful world. And the question is a big slab of marble beautiful? Beautiful in the analog age, when we saw those kind of precious materials as beauty. But that represented luxury of a time that no longer exists. Because what is luxury today? What is luxury for you? What is luxury for you? Is it a big watch? What is luxury?
More than what I need.
What?
More than what I need to survive.
More than what he needs to survive. That's his definition of luxury. You know what my definition of luxury is? Free time. Why? In America, for example, an average person is working a 57-hour work week. Most couples work and have a nanny for their child. Meaning the time gets less and less and less to just have social human pleasure. So for me, luxury is free time. It's not anymore diamonds. It's not anymore the Carrara marble table. It's not anymore heavy material things. Also, the digital age, interestingly enough, is inspiring. And why is it inspiring? Because, for example, it's flexible. It's personalizable. It's customizable. You on your screen, you can make any screensaver you want. You can customize your icons. You can go on the internet, customize your shampoo and your skincare products. You go on the internet, customize your running shoes from Adidas or Nike. You can go online and customize your clothing. So the digital age is now starting to afford this kind of new, how can I say, empowerment of the individual. And a new opportunity for choice ad infinitum. In other words, you can change it forever. So I'm going to give you an example. If today you bought a car that was relevant to the digital age, what would that car be like? When I get into a BMW or a Porsche or an Audi or goes on, I look at the dashboard and I see a little analog clock. Why? What does the analog clock have to do with the world I live in now? What does a watch, relevance of a watch, have to do with the world I live in now? Why? Because I have precise time everywhere. So, you walk into the car, and what is the car interior like? It's an archetype going way back from the 1950s. Leather seats, little pieces of wood. What does a wood have to do with a car? We don't drive around in horses and buggies anymore. It's irrelevant. So we start to shape and design. At this point, we're not designing. Again, we're styling. We're going into history. We're copying from history. We're stealing from history. And we're shaping, basically, archetypes that are irrelevant to the time in which we live. So, this is how I think. I'm going to design a product today. The product itself should speak about the age I live in. So if I'm going to create just form for form's sake, or make just shape, or just material, the least I can do is think about how that form, or that shape, or that material makes a relationship to 2015 and the day and age in which I live. And this new age, which is an interesting age, I call it the age of casualism. And what is casualism? Casualism is that 50% of the world's shoe market right now is the running shoe, the sneaker. That says a lot about the casual age. Casual is that I wear clothes that are comfortable. Casual is that I can drop the uniform and be whoever I want to be and express whoever I want. It doesn't matter what business I'm in. Casual is an honesty there. The honesty and the transparency is about you being you and you are not behind a uniform. So if I go to a bank and I want to take out a loan, do I need to wear a suit and a tie? That's the analog age. The digital age, the loan officer, is talking to me and trying to understand why I need the money, and he is a transparency. Now I'm going to give you this analogy of transparency all the way through the new world. Transparency in the digital age is like our new architecture, where a curtain wall, a piece of glass, is the interior and the exterior of a building. The way we used to build architecture was, we built an exterior facade, then we built an intermediary wall, then we built an interior wall, then we decorated the interior wall, and we had layers and layers and layers. In other words, most buildings, there's no relationship with the outside and the inside, at all. But if I have a glass box, a transparent box, the interior and the exterior are all one. And that kind of transparency is the age in which we live. Now let me be literal about it. So, if I was literal about trying to speak about this digital and interesting age, that coffee table in that hotel should be lightweight, or it should speak somehow, even literally, about transparency. In other words, it shouldn't become an obstacle in the room, but if anything, it should elevate and increase my human experience. With that said, if we look at the history of design, every product that was very successful, every piece of furniture that was pivotal, that made history, had a new technology associated with it. So in the 1920s, when the Bauhaus created a bent steel chair, in Essen, Germany, there was a bicycle manufacturer making steel tubing bicycle handles, and Mark Stam and Marcel Brauer said, wow, look at that technology. Maybe we can make a chair out of that. In the 1930s, when Alvar Aalto made a chair out of bent plywood, he saw that for World War II, they were building bent plywood tubing, sewage pipes, in Germany, and he saw the way the plywood was steam bent with a bladder and a mold, and he made a chair almost with the same tool. His chairs became pivotal, and it goes on and on. When Charles Eames made plywood chairs in the 1950s, It was the first time that plywood was bent in 2 dimensions. So the plywood was 3D. It was new technology associated to that chair. So here we are, 1,300 furniture manufacturers. 1,300. And it's a phenomenal opportunity here because tomorrow, Inigo could be above Milano in Italy. How do these companies embrace 3 really important factors? 1, new technologies. And new technologies can be new material, could possibly be even new social behaviors, meaning how technology and furniture is becoming closer together. New technologies could be a new production method. 2, addressing these new behaviors and if we do that, who addresses them and who's good at that stuff? Embracing design and designers. Smart designers, designers who are not just creating more style, in other words, just copying history, but designers who are thinking about the world in which we live in now. And by the way, just to segue for a moment, Italy, as an Italian, at this point, they become the luxury Italian furniture industry. They managed to own it because they own brands. And they built brands that everybody knows around the world. So the third part is that the companies have to start building their brands. But the only way to build a brand is by showing new product that is globally recognized. New product that wins awards around the world. New product that gets tons of editorial because it's innovative. This is how the companies can establish themselves moving forward in the next 10, 15, 20 years. And brand building is a critical one. And I'm going to give a little, how can I say, a similar analogy to the brand building of furniture industry in Turkey with China. Last week I was in China. I have an office there, and I had a lot of meetings with potential clients. And at one point I sat at a table with 10 people from a mobile phone company who wanted me to do a smartwatch. I wasn't really that interested because I had no idea who they were. Then they tell me they are the 3rd largest mobile phone company in the world. Apple, Samsung, and them. I was shocked. Shocked. Now, why are they talking to me or other Chinese companies talking to other big international designers? Because China now knows that their brands, their companies, instead of being OEM, instead of you supplying material or product to IKEA, you become the next IKEA. Instead of you supplying materials and fabrics and textiles to Zara or to Mango or to H&M, you become the next H&M. So all the Chinese companies, not all of them, some of them, are starting to realize we don't need to be OEMs anymore and be a middleman. We have the technology, we have the assembly lines, we have the factories, we have the materials, we will create our own brands. And that mobile phone company that I just met with, believe me, in 10 years, they will be number 1. Because they are determined to be number 1. So once you have the infrastructure laid out, meaning you have the machines, you have the workforce, you have the factories, you have the know-how, you have the experience, global playing field. You have all the entire opportunity in the world to shape a brand and brands very quickly. And what I like about the digital age is that people are shaping brands overnight. Overnight. It used to take 20, 30 years to establish a brand. Now it takes a year. As long as your product and what you do is relevant to the time in which we live. So let's take the e-commerce industry as an example. If I design an app tomorrow that makes sense for a lot of people to use, my brand becomes enormous overnight. In fact, it's disturbing that somebody can make a thermostat company and turn around in 4 years and sell it for $1.6 billion. Or a headphone company like Beats, 4 years, $3 billion they sell the company for. This is the age we live in now. This is the new age. But Beats was relevant. It changed the marketplace. And the thermostat, being controlled from anywhere, changed the marketplace. Can a chair change the marketplace? Can a couch change the marketplace? Can a bed or a dining table? I don't know. But that has to be the driver for the future of shaping a brand and shaping your business. The problem with copies and copying and copying and copying and copying is anybody can copy and copy and copy and copy. I used to say many times, I used to say this to my students, anybody can look in a book and be inspired. Looking at another picture, be inspired. Going back to China, many people there just copied and copied and copied and copied. But there was a respect for doing a good copy. I mean, you were honored if you could copy something well. Now they realize, no more copying. We're going to create original work. And I think that's the potential here. Phenomenal potential. So just to summarize a little bit. The world is changing, and there's a certain sense of fear that humanity always has about the unknown, about the future. But at the same time, we end up relying too much on the past. If tomorrow you could sit down, pen in hand, write people around the table and say, let's forget about everything for a moment. Let's forget about what we do or the furniture we sell, the kind of chairs we make, and let's start again for a moment. And I call that the creative process from ground zero. And it's a very hard thing to kind of just let go of history and relinquish history. And we never will, because history makes us who we are. But the attempt to try to do that can possibly shape an entire new business model. Okay, that's it. Thank you all.